Good afternoon. I hope everyone is having a good day so far. My name is Casey, and the title of my speech is Do you remember when you learned what pink slime was? The thick, gooey, gelatinous sludge in chicken nuggets and hot dogs? Did it prompt you to run and clean out your freezer? Pink slime probably traumatized a lot of the choosy moms choose Jif types. As for the rest of the population, how many of us gave a second thought to the industry standard in food production? After all, can't we trust Jelly Belly and Kraft to bring the very best to their customers? Besides, isn't an antioxidant rich ocean spray ruby red grapefruit juice a far cry from a mystery meat hot dog? Shouldn't juice have natural flavor? Juice does come from nature. To protect food recipes, the Food and Drug Administration does not require that companies release all ingredients on their labels. But what are these ingredients deemed natural? As consumers, don't we assume the government and other health agencies regulate what goes into our food? The United States has over 3,000 additives. Some of these hide in plain sight with names like, you guessed it, natural flavor. Carmine is a name companies use on ingredient labels for the cochineal beetle body parts. The pulverized beetle bodies produce red dyes for candy, punches, ice cream, yogurt. Excuse me. Very tasty. You specifically find carmine in Del Monte fruit cocktail with cherries. Del Monte also boasts natural flavor in their mixed fruit. Carmine is also found in various flavors of Yoplait yogurt. What about this one? Have you ever tried a Junior Mint? Maybe you aren't a chocolate mint lover, but what about donuts? Or sprinkles? All of these products contain confectioner's glaze, also known as lac resin. Resin comes from the female lac beetle, as she deposits secretions on twigs and branches. Not a fan of beetle juice? What about beavers? Beavers produce castoreum. It's a product of their anal glands. Has a slight vanilla taste. It flavors raspberry candy. Castoreum proves difficult to spot though because manufacturers don't like to list it as that on their label. We may as well touch on Jell-O, which is made by extracting collagen from animal skin and bones, mostly bones, and it lurks in very unassuming places. It can be found in soup, Green Giant frozen vegetables, marshmallows, not even dairy is safe from gelatin. You find it in some yogurts and even cottage cheese. Speaking of cheese, don't worry, I'm not about to tell you that your favorite cheese contains gelatin. What I am about to tell you is that you should probably check the label for a product called rennet. Trader Joe's boasts 14 different cheeses with rennet. But what is it? It's nothing more than the fourth stomach of a very young calf. After all this, you might feel like you need a drink, but don't reach for the Guinness. Guinness goes through a refining process, and the company uses isinglass. But don't reach for the wine either, because wine also finds with isinglass. And what is that? It's the dried swim bladder of a fish. I had to add this one just because I found it plain weird. Noah's Bagels, a popular breakfast chain, uses duck feathers and human hair in their famous morning meal concoctions. But disgust factor aside, how do we know coagulated fish bladders and other products are safe for human consumption? because the FDA says so. That's right, since 1958, we have had grass. You know, the generally regarded as safe list. Only foods tested are grass worthy. That sure makes me feel better knowing that the duck feathers and the enigmatic spices I ate pass some sort of admittance criteria. Further, good to know, good to go with certified organic products because duck feathers and human hair are organic. And thank goodness the FDA controls these things because I do not have time for food transmitted illnesses like hepatitis A or salmonella. Although sadly, once grass adds an item, no reevaluation of the food occurs. Dr. Michael Henson, a senior scientist at the Consumers Union, denies that the testing is even an effective process. And he states many additives are never even tested. And remember, manufacturers do have that right to protect their secret ingredients by not listing all of them on the labels. Unfortunately, the grass list does not inform the public on anything other than the food's approval for general safety. For example, carmine and lac resin can instigate allergies, including anaphylaxis. But collagen and rennet merely classify as another protein, no different from the fish or steak you ate last week. And finally, in spite of any urban legends you may have heard, consuming duck feathers or human hair is not going to give you any hairballs, which is probably about the worst side effect that you could have besides choking from eating human hair. Surely, though, in light of all the natural add-ins, manufacturers must have investigated more modern and cost-effective ways to supplement their goods. And how likely are we really to actually encounter resin or rennet? Because bugs are cheap and rapidly multiply, carmine and confectioner's glaze are still widely used. But mass-produced imitation flavors have replaced castoreum. Chemicals are more convenient and therefore available. Rennet, the baby cow stomach used as a curdling catalyst, also comes in a limited supply. Farmers found they can only birth and slaughter so many unweaned calves in a day. As a result, cheesemakers have come up with a multitude of enzymes. Those do the same job. Gelatin, fining agents replace ice and glass in many breweries. So, what's the point of all this? A lot of us consume foods without giving ingredients much thought. When we do check labels, we trust governing agencies to regulate safety. For those going vegan, they rely on labels to truthfully declare what's really added to their food. However, for the consumer, determining what's in a food can prove difficult, if not impossible. Some of the most delicious confections may have distasteful integrations, but purchasers remain at the mercy of other entities for protection. I wanted some honest feedback on the public's reaction to bug parts and human hair in their food. So I apprehended the most honest population I can find, a first grader. She was definite she would never give up Skittles, even knowing they contained bug parts. Further, she did not care about duck feathers or cow stomachs in her entrees as long as the food tasted good. My other child told me that she would just rather not know what was in her food. But what about you? And what was my reaction to all of this? I had to think really hard. Did knowing this mean that I was going to give up Brewster's birthday cake ice cream and its exquisite beetle sprinkles? Probably not.